Hi everyone, I wanted to talk about Ras Al Khaimah today, which is another emirate. Hasn't exactly got the same publicity as Dubai and Abu Dhabi, but it's been quite important to discuss it because it's been promoting itself as possibly the best place for offshore jurisdictions and to start a company. It's got a free trade zone, and a lot of people actually went there and started companies, and this resulted in several people winding up in prison and also being reported to Interpol and subject to extradition proceedings. Those of you who don't know some of the background information about RAK that I've been working on, essentially a lot of cases over the past few years, but importantly, Sheikh Saud is a very nervous ruler. He's nervous about his own power and position in rule, and I've given a lot of background information on that in writing, so I won't go into great detail with it now, but I'll post it with this video afterwards. What I wanted to talk about is someone that I've been supporting and whose cause I believe in, and that's Karam Al Sadeq, a Jordanian national who's currently detained in RAK. Now, his case is very interesting because he's been brave enough to actually come forward and litigate outside of the UAE and outside of RAK by granting authority to third parties to do so. But he's given that authority knowing that in opening litigation outside of the jurisdiction of the UAE while in prison, he's going to be poorly treated. He's going to be perhaps put back in solitary, where he had a little bit of contact before he was able to occasionally talk to his family, but now he's gone back into isolation because of the litigation that he's taken. Now, he's opened cases against international law firm Dechert, who have offices in the US and in the UK. So that's very interesting. They've been working for the Ras Al Khaimah government, and as part of their role, they've interrogated and interviewed various detainees in prison, and they are now being made accountable through the British courts for allegations of human rights abuses and torture that they have partaken in, allegedly, on behalf of the government of RAK. But more notably is the fact that justice can be sought against them outside of the jurisdiction of the UAE. I'm very excited to see the result of this. It's going to be a little bit drawn out in that with coronavirus, the courts are going to be slow. There's a lot of excuses not to turn up. But it's proceeded and progressed brilliantly. And in fact, the US has just ruled that Dechert law firm have to open their books open their books. They're being subpoenaed. They have to give information pertaining to these allegations of human rights abuses and torture. And so this is groundbreaking in that sense, and we really look forward to that proceeding along the courts. But also, there is absolutely no reason to be holding Karam Al Sadeq. He's being held hostage by the regime, as several others still being held. And it's been part of a group of people that Sheikh Saud has sought to gain information from to support his position. So these are unfair and wrongful detentions that should be raised individually with the United Nations, but also collectively. I'd like to see a report on abuse by the government of Ras Al Khaimah. I cannot recommend the jurisdiction at all as safe. I would say that people who go there are very highly likely to face wrongful imprisonment, and we've had cases that aren't even related to these group of people who were working for around the investment authority. We've had a French national who opened a manufacturing plant there, and he was arrested on the basis of a bounce check that the government caused him to bounce by shutting down his plant because he refused to pay a corrupt, I think it was 20% of his profits for absolutely no reason. So it's still considered a kind of cowboy emirate. of the UAE, and we certainly couldn't count on any rule of law happening there. We can't count on due process, we can't count on access to lawyers, fair trials, or not being held indefinitely on the whim of anyone who has any sort of influence over the police, over the government, or anyone related to Sheikh Saud, or the investment authorities, the various commercial elements of the Emirate. So it's really important that that Karam actually gets justice through the British courts, that they hear his claims, and that the United Nations is aware of this, because we'd like to see some change happening in RAK, and we'd like to see these people who are being wrongfully held freed. Thanks.